Robert Mueller spent some of his time today summarizing his now famous report, but because it came from him in his own voice, it was a dramatic end to his tenure as one of the most famous prosecutors in U.S. history.
In the only public statement he has ever made about the investigation, Robert Mueller was clear he intended it to be his last.
Now, I hope and expect this to be the only time that I will speak to you in this manner. I am making that decision myself. No one has told me whether I can or should testify or speak further about this matter.
He left little doubt he has no intention of testifying before Congress.
I would not provide information beyond that which is already public in any appearance before Congress.
Most of Mueller's 9-minute statement today, he took no questions, summarized his 448-page report. But he removed one lingering mystery about the investigation into whether President Trump obstructed justice. He said he and his team made a decision at the very beginning of their work that long-standing Justice Department policy would not allow indicting a president.
Charging the president with a crime was therefore not an option we could consider.
But the Attorney General says he asked Mueller in early March whether, if not for that Justice Department policy, the report would have found that the president committed a crime.
And he made it very clear several times that that was not his position.
That's no contradiction, a Mueller associate says, because the policy prevented his team from even considering whether the evidence amounted to a crime.
We concluded that we would not reach a determination one way or the other about whether the president committed a crime.
Mueller's summary of his own investigation of any Trump campaign involvement with the Russians was more limited than the way it was explained by the Attorney General.
The special counsel's report did not find any evidence that members of the Trump campaign or anyone associated with the campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government.
Mueller today did not say that his team found no such evidence in that part of the report.
This volume includes a discussion of the Trump campaign's response to this activity, as well as our conclusion that there was insufficient evidence to charge a broader conspiracy.
But in a statement unusual for any prosecutor, Mueller did not clear the president either.
If we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
And he tellingly noted that the same Justice Department policy says a president can be impeached.
The opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing.
And with that, Robert Mueller formally ended his role as special counsel. Pete Williams, NBC News at the Justice Department.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.